So, one of the first acts of the new Republican House of Representatives is apparently going to be to consider putting a bust of Volodymyr Zelensky on permanent display in the U.S. Capitol. Now, this is not a resolution that has passed the U.S. House. It's not been endorsed by the Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, but it's been proposed by a Republican representative. And he didn't propose this back when the Democrats controlled the House. So presumably he thinks it has a better chance of passing now that the Republicans control it than when the Democrats controlled the House. And so this guy, Representative Joe Wilson of South Carolina, yet again, a red state Republican, absolutely stabbing his voters in the back, pissing on the graves of really every American who has ever lived. Remember, the U.S. Capitol building is so sacred that the proles may not enter. That's why all the January 6thers are in prison. It's because they dared trespass on the sacred holy grounds of the U.S. Capitol. Yet, this Republican, and likely many Republicans like him, think that Volodymyr Zelensky, his presence in the Capitol, should be immortalized. Not one day should go by, not 1 minute, not 1 second should go by where Volodymyr Zelensky's presence is not felt in the U.S. Capitol. That's how much he places the life of Volodymyr Zelensky above every single one of you. Joe Wilson would steal your home out from under you, kick you out, put you on the streets, force your daughter to prostitute herself, starve your baby. He'd do all of that before he would consider stopping the flow of billions and billions and soon to be trillions of dollars in so-called aid to Ukraine. You know, I said a week or two ago that Kevin McCarthy was the worst kind of person in Washington. You know what? He's actually not. I think Joe Wilson is the worst kind of person in Washington. Because McCarthy, as much as he can't stand his own voters, as much as he is out of touch, as much as he has zero concern for the American people, I think it pisses me off more when you have someone who really buys into the regime's propaganda to the point that he looks down on his fellow Americans and elevates foreigners above them simply based on their adherence to the regime's propaganda. I, for one, if I were in the House of Representatives, would propose my own resolution to counter Joe Wilson's, allocating funds for the creation and the display of a bust of literally any American citizen to go in the place of wherever he was planning on putting Volodymyr Zelensky's bust. Because there is not one single person in this country whose life is not more valuable and whose presence is not more deserving of being immortalized in the U.S. Capitol, whose presence would not add more to the U.S. Capitol than Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, keep in mind, I don't hate the man. In fact, I thought that he would be, pretty decent guy when he got elected. But the fact of the matter is he's a puppet. And what he represents is subservience to the regime in Washington. And so when Joe Wilson proposes to put a bust of Zelensky in the U.S. Capitol, he's commissioning a monument to the deep state, to the propaganda regime, and to every person in Washington who stands against you. Because that's who Zelensky serves. Those are his real masters. Zelensky is a figurehead puppeted by the real worst people in the world. The folks in the CIA. and the other agencies, the ones who we're not allowed to know about, the ones who you're crazy for questioning because they are omniscient and they're always right. You know, they're like, they think they're like the Jedi or something. They're these great, unaccountable, unelected secret peacekeepers who go around the world, you know, meddling in the affairs of various peoples, molding the earth closer to their own heart's desire. And of course, there is no question that what they do is right, that what they do is correct, that what they do is just, because they are the great Jedi Central Intelligence Agency. You know, I never thought about it, but I wonder if, you know, George Lucas, he really had a lot of clumsy political metaphors and allusions in the Star Wars trilogy. I wonder if he meant for the Jedi to be like the deep state. Now, yes, I get that the Jedi are the good guys in Star Wars, but I mean, obviously, he was trying to show that there were some people who had some somewhat legitimate reasons, even though it wasn't really fleshed out, for not liking the Jedi. You know, I should think about that. Not that I do Star Wars theory videos, and I don't want this to turn into that. But I think I actually stumbled on something that might be worth exploring. I mean, come on, Jedi mind tricks, MK Ultra. You know, there's a lot of parallels here. Now, it's guys like Joe Wilson who really make the Republicans deserving of a loss. The Democrats, I think, are less openly contemptuous of their own voters. The Democrats display an immense amount of contempt for Republican voters. They dehumanize Republican voters on a regular basis. But they do that less so to their own voters. The Republicans, on the other hand, go out of their way to condemn the very people who put them in office on a daily basis. And they piss all over them at every opportunity. The Democrats do this to the left in more subtle ways. If you're really a plugged-in and engaged leftist, like, let's say, Jimmy Dore, it's easy enough for you to pick up on this, and you know that the Democrats are a bunch of snakes. But they put more work, I think, into concealing their treachery against their own supporters. The Republicans do not. Because the Republicans deep down still want to be loved by the likes of CNN and MSNBC. After all, look at Paul Ryan, who basically runs Fox News at this point. He went on CNN with Jake Tapper just to virtue signal about how much he hates Trump. The guy who's in charge of Fox News, he doesn't go on Fox News, Paul Ryan, to make his voice heard. He goes on CNN. Why? Because he respects CNN more than his own network. You think that Paul Ryan would give an interview to Tucker Carlson, the #1 host on the network that Paul Ryan, is basically in charge of? No, he goes to Jake Tapper. He runs over, like the little snake that he is, to piss on his former voters. Paul Ryan, who promised to repeal Obamacare and never did, who then has the gall to blame old Donnie Don, who does deserve blame, certainly, for being a bad president, but he has the gall, when he was so much worse, to blame Trump for his own loss of the House of Representatives back in 2018. I don't feel like I should have to say this, but Republicans, as evidenced by Joe Wilson and this whole bust of Zelensky bullshit, they seem to still not understand. Paul Ryan, when you piss on your voters, they don't show up for you the next time. And you know what? A lot of them still do. Most of them still do. But a few of them, enough of them, will stay home and say, you know what? Screw it. These guys, they don't want my vote. They don't like me. They don't represent me. Really, who does Joe Wilson represent? Who in his district is just crying out for a bust of Zelensky to be put on display in the U.S. Capitol? Approximately 0.00% of them. Unless he happens to have a defense contractor in his district, or someone else who's found a way to grift off of all of the Ukraine aid And after all, what's his name? Mo Brooks from Alabama, one of the most corrupt states in America. He bragged about how, hey, if Ukraine is just a money laundering operation, what are you guys worried about? All this money is coming back to the United States and going to our defense contractors. Mo Brooks, Mr. Conservative, I think he was on the Freedom Caucus. He was bragging about that. But hell, I mean, this is the same government that ordered troops to defend the lives of pedophiles in Afghanistan when the parents of poor children who had been kidnapped so that they could be sexually assaulted turned into concubines for the wretched tribal leaders in the Northern Alliance. When they came knocking at the door looking for their children, you know what they got? They didn't get their kids back. They got shot and killed by American soldiers. And who ordered that? Well, it started under the Bush administration. I'm certain that the Obama and Trump administrations continued those policies as well, all the way up until the end of the Afghan war. But the shorter answer is Republicans. Who picked a pedophile to be their Speaker of the House? Oh, that's right. It was the Republicans. Who put a drunk in charge of the House of Representatives? Oh, that's right. It was the Republicans. Who put a philanderer who openly cheats on his wife in public with a married woman, pals around, going on dates with a married woman while both of their spouses are back home, waiting faithfully in California and North Carolina, respectively? Oh, that's right. The Republicans put Kevin McCarthy in charge. They made him the Speaker of the House. And now Joe Donnelly, or Joe Wilson, I already forgot his name. That's how much of a copy and pasted putz this guy is. He wants to immortalize the image of a man who plays the piano with his penis. That's the Republican Party, folks. They're giving you the conservative case for Drag Queen Story Hour. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.